Hey everyone, how's it going? So this is my review of a game called Air, Land, and Sea. Air, Land, and Sea is a cute little two-player, cute's the wrong word, an accessible and easy to teach two-player card game that is very reminiscent of some of my favorite games, most particularly a game called Battle Line, over here, Battle Line, and then as well as that, Hanamakoji. Hanamakoji and Battle Line are two of my favorite simple, quick, fun, accessible two-player card games, and Air, Land, and Sea is now being added to the mix for that. Air, Land, and Sea is incredibly accessible. Well, actually, hang on. I'll do a quick video of how to play it, and we'll come right back over here in a second. So, Air, Land, and Sea is basically a two-player card game that's played over multiple rounds until one player has gotten a total of 12 or more points. Every round that you play, by default, comes in at 6 points when you win, which seems pretty simple. Whoever wins 2 rounds first will ultimately win the game. But there's many clever things about this game, but one of the clever things about this game that makes it fascinating to play is the withdrawal mechanic. The withdrawal mechanic basically is the idea that one player, let's see if I can get this to focus, one player, and now there's reflection, one player can withdraw earlier than they actually lose in order to deny their opponent points. So if I believe that the opponent is going to win, I'm looking at my cards, I'm looking at a setup, I don't believe there's a way for me to win this round, I can withdraw earlier, and the earlier that I withdraw, the fewer points he gets. So you're basically giving up the fact that, well, maybe you would have won, but the flip side is you give him fewer points, and so it makes that trade-off very worthwhile. And it depends on which player you're playing as. First player and second player have different tiers for how they withdraw, but you can see there's either 2, 3, 4, or 6 points depending on how early you withdraw. So that's the first of many clever things about this game. The basic idea past that, how do you actually play, how do you actually win? Well, there's 3 tiers, there's 3 lanes over here. In each lane, you've the first player to win 2 of those, when the round's over, when a player has won 2 of 3 lanes, that player wins the game. So there's land, sea, and air, and these are shuffled up every round and distributed, which can change where they are in orientation, and yes, that can matter. So when the round's over, if a player has won 2 of these 3 lanes, they win the round. Alternatively, if your opponent withdraws, then you win the round. When the game starts off, each player gets 6 cards. They look at their 6 cards, they try to figure out what they need to play. The cards all come in variables from 1 through 6. So for each of there's 18 cards total, and for each of the 3 lanes, there's cards 1 through 6, values 1 through 6. The 6s are all very basic and plain, they're vanilla, and they're just pure strength. But every number between 1 and 5 comes with an ability attached to it. So on your turn, you're going to play a card. And what you can do is you can play a card in a lane that matches that card, or you can play it face down in any lane. A card played face down might be able to be flipped later, at which point it's totally fine regardless of what lane it's in. This card has now been flipped. It doesn't matter that it's in the wrong lane because it was played face down. A card that's played face down is worth 2 points. Cards can be flipped to your advantage or to hinder your opponent, but a card can only be flipped if it's the first card, meaning once that card gets covered by another card, whether face down or face up, you can only ever flip the top card in a stack. So other cards can be protected from that. The cards all come with a value, which is how you actually win the lane. So this lane currently has 7 in land, but in addition to that, they come with abilities that let you do things, and those abilities are key to the game. What they come with the basic abilities are things like flipping cards. Then there's things that you can flip a card in any theater. You can look at the top card of the battle deck and play it face down to an adjacent theater. So there's 18 cards, you only have 12. This one lets you pull a 13th card to the game. Disrupt. Your opponent chooses and flips one of their battle cards. Then you flip one of yours. Redeploy. Return one of your face-down battle cards, and if you do, gain an extra turn. Escalation. All of your face-down battle cards are now strength 4. I'll go through a few more of these. Airdrop. On your next turn, you may play a battle card to any matching theater. When I've been calling these lanes, the game refers to them as theaters. So each of these is a theater. Those are some 6s. Flipping. All battle cards covered by this card are strength 4. So that lets your smaller values be worth much more. Support. Support's a fun one. Gain 3 strength in each adjacent theater. Flip. You may move one of your battle cards to a different theater, and Blockade, which is a little too complicated to explain right now, but it is a fun card. That was Air, Land, and Sea. Air, Land, and Sea, I only have a handful of games in my belt. I only have 3 or 4 games in my belt so far, but if things continue in the direction they are with this game, this is going to outrank Battleline for me. This is going to outrank Hanamakoji for me. This is going to be one of my favorite 2-player accessible card games that easy to travel with, easy to play, easy to teach, rewarding in each experience. The first game of Air, Land, and Sea is really just a little bit of, okay, this is interesting, a few values, a few abilities, this is fun, good for some casual play. But the second game is already that much more rewarding and that much more deep. Now that you know the abilities at play, now that you know what's coming up, suddenly it's a bit more of a real dance back and forth. Your third game, it begins off even completely differently. Now your third game, you're looking at all the cards, and you're not just trying to think through what your opponent's going to play, but you start planning out your entire round. Okay, I have these cards, they might be able to flip those ones, and then I'll be able to respond that way. You start planning out your entire round before you play a single card. And that is already such a richly rewarding tactical experience. Obviously, what makes it even more interesting is you might be completely wrong about what your opponent has, what they can do, how they can stop you, and you have to adjust your strategy on the fly. And then what makes it even more rewarding is sometimes adjusting your strategy on the fly means changing the cards you play, changing how you're going to win, to react, to get those 6 points. Or just as interesting and just as rewarding is tactically withdrawing. It is so amazingly fun to sit there and look at the board, look at the cards, and walk away and give your opponents 2 points, give them 3 points. And then hearing them go, oh, come on, as if they realized they had that round, they had the cards, they had the system, and you just denied them a bunch of points. In my first game of Air, Land, and Sea, I quickly won a few games and got up to 10 points. Then my opponent won a few games back and forth, and each time I walked away denying him the victory until we finally got to a head and I pulled in the win. It is so much fun to deny your opponent points, and it's bizarre because you're losing. Effectively, when you do that, you are losing the game, but it's rewarding. It feels tactical. It feels like you made the right choice. Like you had an opportunity, you had an option, you had decisions to make, and you sat there and you took the short loss to win the war. Air, Land, and Sea is incredibly rewarding, both in how it scores points as well as the gameplay itself. It's just 18 cards, and I shouldn't say it's just 18 cards. The 18 cards is part of why it's so rewarding. If it had 36 cards, it would be significantly harder to actually plan around what's going to happen. It would be just much more of a, okay, play cards, see what your opponent has. The fact that it's 18 cards means at any point you can make reasonable deductions about what will be played, you can make reasonable accommodations for what can be played, and you can sit there and plan through the game and play it out. It's faster than Battleline, it's more fun than Battleline, it's prettier than Battleline, although I don't have the new version of Battleline, so maybe not for that. It is, I mean, for me, Hanamakoji I actually even prefer more than Battleline. I don't know, Hanamakoji I might still prefer Hanamakoji to this one, although, again, it's early days still, so we'll see. Hanamakoji has a rich, I'll do a separate video on Hanamakoji. It's a great game. But Air, Land, and Sea is just rewarding. It packs an incredible punch for such a small game, for such a short game. It's a great game. That's basically all I can say. I mean, I've covered how to play, I've covered my opinion. It is an excellent, excellent game. You should try it out, especially if you could use a 2-player short card game in your collection. This video is brought to you by Board Game Co. You can like this video down here. You can subscribe over, I don't know, somewhere over here you can subscribe. And there's another video up there. Board Game Co. Come by our site, buy some games, trade with us. We'd love to have you. Have a good one.